For this question, we're asked to create a frequency distribution, among other things probably within the rest of the question, but I'm being given a specified class limit and class width. So we're going to show you how to do that. Remember that if I want to construct a frequency distribution or table given quantitative values, I need to do that in Statcrunch. So I already have the data loaded over here on the right-hand side of the screen. To create a frequency distribution, we're going to come in and go to Stat, Tables, Frequency. The column is going to be variable, and because I have a feeling that I'm going to be answering both frequency and relative frequency questions, I'm going to leave both of these highlighted. But notice here in the center of this pop-up window, we get the choice now to define our bins, so our class widths. So I'm going to bin the numerical values. We're told in this particular problem that we're going to have a lower limit of 30,000. So we're going to start at 30,000. And then each class is going to have a width of 6,000. So the width is going to be 6,000. And now I hit compute, and my table is going to look like this right here. Now, when I look at these three rows here for the table, and the answer, which is showing up over here for me to put my information in, there's 4 rows. So what's the difference? Well, we're going from 30,000, and you'll notice here that in the first row we went 30 to 36. Then the second row is 36 to 42,000, but then we skip from 42,000 all the way up to 48,000. And then that's what the last row is. So in other words, whatever values are occurring between 42 and 48, there are none. Okay, so that class still exists, but there isn't any data in it. So let's fill in this information over here in the right-hand side of the screen, exactly similar to what it looks like here in this table. So here is my data that's entered into the first question where I was asked for the frequency. Remember that the class starts at 30,000, goes all the way up to but does not include 36,000. So that means that we're going up to 35,999. And I put the frequency value in at 14. And then we went 36,000 to 41,999. The third class, which is actually missing from the table, is represented by 42,000 all the way up to but not including the 48,000. So that would be a frequency of 0. And then the last class, 48,000 up to but not including 54,000, is a 1. The second part of the question asks me to create the exact same distribution, only this time we're going to do a relative frequency distribution. So my classes from up here in the previous table are going to look exactly the same, except this time we're using the relative frequency from our Statcrunch distribution here on the right and filling in this information here. You can see that we end up with the answer correct, and we can now move on. Now, I've reloaded this data set because I want to bring up one more important point. We showed you in the first part of this video how to create a table given my quantitative variable data, and how do I create that table with particular bins that have been defined for me in the problem. I can do a similar thing when I want to create a graph of raw data like this, or a graph of any type of histogram. I can specify the class limit as well as the width in the graph. So how do I do that? We're going to go graph. This is a histogram, so I'm going to choose the histogram option. Variable 1 is the column I'm looking at. And it doesn't matter if I look at either frequency or relative frequency, because the binning of the numbers is going to be the same. So we're told here that we want to have a class limit of 3,000 with a bin width of 6,000. So we're going to start at 3,000, and we're going to bin each value, or each class is going to have a width of 6,000. When I click compute, we have a graph, a histogram, I should say, that represents the data we were just looking at. And just like in the previous data set, we have a missing value set here for this class width in between. It's the third one here on our frequency table. And you can see how that shows up as a blank spot in our histogram. So if we are specifically told a class limit, like a lower limit as well as a bin width, we can make those choices in both the in both the histogram graph using the binning here within the histogram graph, and then we can also do it for our table version again in the center of that just in the center of that pop-up. So hope that helps.